Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's The Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. This hour, the room that left Detroit 100 years ago lives on today with a local small business owner. A little backstory. In 1876 and 1877, Harmony in Blue and Gold, the Peacock Room, was completed by artist James McNeill Whistler. It was originally a dining room in the London home of Friedrich Richards Leland, a wealthy shipowner from Liverpool, England. The room was to house Leland's priceless Chinese blue and white porcelain. But while Leland was away, the room became a fresh canvas. Whistler covered the ceiling with imitation gold leaf and peacock feathers, gilded the shelving, and painted peacocks across the shutters. Leland was infuriated, and the two men feuded over the work and the bill for the rest of their lives. It remained intact in Leland's home until his death in 1892. In comes Charles Lang Freer, a Detroit railroad car manufacturer. He was an avid collector of Asian and Middle Eastern artworks and bought the Peacock Room in its entirety, panel by panel. He had it shipped here to his home on East Ferry Avenue in 1904. It remained in Detroit until 1919. The room is preserved right now in its entirety in the Freer Gallery at the Smithsonian's National Museum of Asian Art. In Rachel Lutz's retail shop, the Peacock Room pays homage to Charles Lang Freer's vision of collecting the room Detroit lost. Located in the Park Shelton and Fisher buildings, Lutz has curated her space like galleries, displaying garments and accessories like objects in a museum. And the New York Times just named the Peacock Room one of its 25 favorite clothing stores in the entire country. This fall, the Peacock Room Antiques Studio opens in Park Shelton, which will be an event-driven destination for collecting, education, and community. Owner Rachel Lutz joins us now to talk more about continuing in Freer's footsteps. Rachel, welcome back to the Metro.
Thanks so much for having me. This is exciting.
This is exciting. And to have you here at a time where you're getting spotlighted, you have a spotlight on you. The New York Times named the Peacock Room one of its 25 favorite clothing stores in the entire country. Where were you when you found out? Who were you with?
Who was I with? Wow, first question, I can't quite recall. I got an email, which is hilarious because I'm usually like drowning in emails. And, I just saw this email from the New York Times. I'm like, oh man, is my subscription due? And I clicked on it. And I had to like Google the reporter. I'm like, is this a real thing? I was very, very excited. So, of course, I called my mother and I called, my close friends, and I had to keep it, kind of under wraps at the time because I didn't know 100% that, we were going to be published. As you know, like you never know what ends up in print or when. So they had to submit some photographs. I did a video tour with the reporter so that they could actually, quote unquote, see the store. Probably to make sure we're not like some online fast fashion thing.
Exactly.
Because nowadays, before anybody, buys anything, you have to like check things out. So, no, it was legit. And I was very, very honored, especially because I don't consider myself a, quote, fashion person. And we had been in the New York Times. Before a few times, but not in the style section.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was very, very grateful. Someone had, nominated us, or maybe a few people had nominated us, and they went through hundreds of submissions, and 25 made the list. And Detroit is on it, not just the Peacock Room, but Detroit is on the list. So take that, New York.
Why do you think a Detroit shop made the list alongside stores and shops in major cities like LA or New York? You just said, stick it to New York.
Yeah. I mean, it was also exciting to see an Ann Arbor shop on the list. So I think that there are great small businesses all over this country, and clothing shopping has changed a lot over the last, several years. Retail in general has changed a lot over the last several years. It was great to know that the New York Times felt it was important to not just highlight, these big fancy designers and these major chain stores, but really like where you find fashion is everywhere. Fashion is out on the street. Fashion is in your own closet. Fashion is in your mind. So it's great that they wanted to focus on these smaller retailers and to acknowledge the role that we play in the fashion scene. And I will just say that Detroit is a fashion capital. It always has been. But really, you think, I mean, there's style everywhere you turn on the street. And I've been known to catcall people from my car. I will roll down my window. I did it yesterday, and this woman was wearing this like really fun print, and I just was like, "You look amazing!" And she's like, "Thanks, girl." Yes. You see men walking down the street, especially on Sundays, in their 3-piece suits, and you can't help but be like, "You look sharp as a tack." So, please catcall people. Catcall people in a positive way when you see them wearing something cool, and it's all over Detroit, and it's all over, really every town. If you know where to look, you will find fashion. So it was thrilling to see our name on the list.
Yes. Similarly, I literally did it like 2 weeks ago. I saw a woman in a beautiful yellow dress. It was so beautiful. So I slowed down, rolled my window down, and I screamed, "I love your dress." And she just waved back and said, "Thank you." And I feel the same way when you have something kind to say to someone. Excuse me. You want to make sure that you let them know.
You got to acknowledge it. Yeah, you really need to acknowledge it, and you need to encourage people to keep on doing their thing. And when you were seeing that woman in that dress, she was giving you some dopamine. So yeah, you got to keep that going for sure. And I think that that's another reason why I love giving people compliments like that, because you want to give them that encouragement. And people come in the store all the time. They're like, "I love this, but where would I wear it?" And I say, "On your body." Like that's where you wear it. So you really want to encourage people. Like every day is a special occasion for sure.
It really is. Now,
you're getting all choked up thinking about how amazing that woman looked in that yellow dress.
Thank you so much for that. But has the news of the New York Times listing increased foot traffic?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. We've had people coming in the shop. We've had a lot of tourists in the shop. I guess they, before you go to like a big city you've never been to, you want to look at, city guides or shopping guides. So we've had a lot of people mention that they have seen the New York Times list that we were on. So it's a huge boost for a small business. Anytime you get like that national coverage, and New York Times style section is kind of international coverage. So it was really a huge boost to a small business.
I found so many tips, not just for food, but fashion too. I always look for the recipes too, but the fashion and just finding simple pieces that could work together. Honestly, the New York Times has been a heaven sent it sometimes when I'm looking for an outfit to put together. Now, before you owned the Peacock Room, you were a journalist.
I was a pretend budding journalist. So when I was 16 years old, I interned in this news department. I've always, go ahead.
This news department, meaning
WDET's news department. And at the time, this was so many years ago, Jerome Vaughn was the news director. And, I think Jerome Vaughn is still the news director.
Yes.
So we just had a little reunion in the green room, and it was exciting. But I've always loved storytelling. I've always been fascinated by the questions, not the answers. So I've always, been drawn to journalism. I think it's very important. I think that we're very lucky to live in a place that has a free press and to understand what that really means. And in a way, I'm still kind of storytelling, but I'm storytelling about the finds in the shop and my adventures when I source things. So I've really used that in my background, and also just, with our social media, getting word out about why I picked what I picked or what we have, and the reasoning behind things, and the story of how things were made or how I found them. I just love that.
Why do you think that's so important, Rachel, to build these stories and to build a space that holds these stories?
Otherwise, it's just stuff on a shelf. You may as well be at, a major retailer that doesn't really come face to face with its customers. I'm not going to name names of these big corporations, but you see them at the mall or, and nowadays, my gosh, storytelling is even more important as we go into the age of AI, the dawn of AI. Some of these websites that people are shopping on are not, they're fake storytelling. Like, oh, this was made from Norwegian sheep in the mountain. And it's got the picture of the mother and daughter that wove the sweater. And you're like, why is this showing up in a plastic bag with a barcode on it from overseas? So I think people crave that realness now more. They crave the story behind something. And not everything in the Peacock room is, handmade by artisans, but things are vetted for the labor conditions that they're made under. Things are vetted for the materials, I don't shop online. I shop with my fingertips and my eyes, meeting with companies, going to trade shows. And I think that editing process is really what people want. I think that we're seeing this boomerang effect back into brick and mortar stores because people want to touch things. They want to know what they're walking out with. They want to know the community that they're supporting when they buy something. And we're becoming more detached from that process online. And I think that we're seeing that pendulum swinging back into boutiques again.
I mean, I agree. As a shopper myself, I shop a lot less online for clothing than I used to in recent years, past years. I do a lot of thrifting or I just try to find things that are, second lives because it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
Yeah. And also they used to make more things that could last a second life. With this disposable fast fashion, you buy it. Maybe it's like a dress for $12. I'm not going to tell you about the labor conditions that you are supporting. But those things are full of hormone disruptors and carcinogens. And not only that, but they just don't look great. They're not tailored nicely. The fabric isn't good. It doesn't lay right. Those seams are all crooked. We're not going to say anything when you see you at that baby shower, but we know you got that on Shein. But things you used to buy a dress and it could last you 10 years. You could wash it again and again or clean it, So those are the pieces that I look for. I look for those pieces that you can get, that second life out of. Eventually it will end up secondhand because it's still standing. And a lot of these newly produced pieces that you see in the mass market just don't do that for you anymore.
Not at all. Not at all. Ma'am. This is The Metro. I'm Tia Graham. We're talking about the Peacock Room, making the New York Times 25 favorite clothing stores list in the country. Our guest is the founder and owner of the Peacock Room in Detroit, Rachel Lutz. Now, Rachel, the New York Times recognition is a big deal for you, like you said, and the recognition for the Peacock Room itself. Have you been waiting for validation of this level, or have you already been affirmed in what you've been able to create and build with the Peacock Room?
That's a heavy question for not even 11:30 in the morning, but that's a really great question. I definitely have a bit of imposter syndrome. I don't consider myself like in the quote fashion industry. I don't like the fashion industry. Yeah. I don't like shopping. I'm going to clarify and say I don't like what the shopping process has become. Okay. When in the 1900s, when I was working my way through Wayne State University, I worked at Nordstrom, and I worked alongside ladies who retired after decades of service at Jacobson's and Hudson's. Oh, wow. And those ladies taught me a lot. And that, to me, that's the only quote unquote fashion industry exposure I had. But they taught me how to quote dress people. You used to be able to go into a store and there was someone to actually help you. Sometimes when we offer people service in the shop, it's like a foreign concept to them. And they're like, what do you mean you want to pull things from the racks for me? Like, what is that? And I know Mr. Hudson would be rolling in his grave. But I've never really, as a plus size woman too, I've never really felt like a part of the fashion industry. When I was growing up, I did not see women who looked like me in fashion magazines, with like a fuller figure, a big nose, not wearing heavy cosmetics. And you still have to dress, you still have to wear something.
Exactly.
So I really learned fashion from the angle of good design, good fabrics. My mom used to love to collect vintage and antique textiles, so I knew what good things felt like. And I think that I kind of experienced in the 1990s, I experienced that switch over from like union made American clothing to a lot of imported stuff that just didn't feel as good. And don't get me wrong, like there's some stuff made in the USA that is not good.
Yeah.
And there are some great factories overseas. It's just knowing what's what. But I've never really I didn't like reading fashion magazines when I was younger because I didn't see myself reflected. And also the fashion industry is built on exploiting the insecurities of especially women.
Yes.
To consume and to teach you that you're inadequate and you need to consume things and buy things to feel better about yourself. And that is something I have never been on board with. So to get something like validation within the fashion community, it does mean a lot. Not that I did this for anybody's validation or approval, but I just did what was in my gut. My background is more in history, architecture, design, historic preservation, the arts. Those are all things that you can apply when dressing somebody. You're looking for the same thing that you would apply in designing a space. You look at proportion, form, color, detail. All those things come into play. You're just doing it on a human form. So I didn't do it for validation, but I got to say it feels really nice coming from the New York Times style section that they see what I've built, that they see what we have in Detroit, and it is something different. It's not your typical shopping experience. So yeah, it does feel pretty great to get validation within that professional community.
My mom and I say to each other all the time, fashion is art. Fashion is
Absolutely.
art. Now, you were talking about your background a little bit, historic preservation and storytelling and just making sure that you're preserving history once again. As you very well know, in 1904, Charles Lang Freer bought the original Peacock Room created by James McNeill Whistler in its entirety, shipped it to Detroit. Freer then donated his entire collection to the Smithsonian upon his death, and the Peacock Room stood here in Detroit until 1919. The collection went on to form the country's first national art museum and the first Asian art museum. What drew you to this story, and what gave you inspiration to design your shop around the Peacock Room?
I was so excited. I think it was a couple months ago you did a story in depth on the Peacock Room.
Yes.
When the head of the Freer came and lectured, and I devoured that interview. It was so great.
Thank you.
And it's so I originally picked the Peacock Room because I wanted a Detroit historical reference. The Peacock Room kind of fit because, well, I learned about it years ago when I had my Appreciating Art in Detroit class with Dr. Jim Totis at Wayne State. And that's when I first learned about the Peacock Room. And the name of it, like a peacock, is showy. We're definitely not for people who want to be invisible when they walk in a room. And room, it feels like an intimate space. It's not like Bob's Warehouse of Fashion. So it felt like you're going into someone's parlor. And I knew about Freer and I knew about the Peacock Room. I didn't fully understand how much more it clicked with me until years after, really.
Wow.
So I wanted to bring attention to the real Peacock Room. And excitingly, I actually hosted recently a group of over 20 docents from the Freer Museum in Washington, D.C., in the Smithsonian. I toured them around town, and I maybe I should save this story from when we're talking about the antique studio. But anyway, I really felt like the more I learned about Freer, the more appropriate it felt. Freer did not collect things that other people were collecting at the time. He did not follow the popular fashion. He was a Gilded Age, moneyed guy that he collected what he loved, and he didn't listen to what everyone else on the scene was doing. And he came into, for example, like Japan, Korea, China, Egypt, Syria at the time. And, he'd go to Japan and say, please teach me about tea ceremonies because I want to learn more about this teacup. And the colors remind me of the sunset. He came as a humble student of those cultures. He came into a space that was unfamiliar to him and just listened and learned. And the more I learn about Freer, the more I realize, we are all collectors. We are all students. And, when it comes to dressing ourselves, there are a lot of us who are like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm one of those people. and I love the idea that it's kind of, he kind of democratized, collecting at the time. And it was so him that at the time, his collection was rejected by the Smithsonian. They're like, what is this weird stuff? And President Teddy Roosevelt had to intervene and was like, no, this is significant and you need to stop and you need to accept this gift. So I feel like that's kind of how I feel about what we wear. Like, you may want validation from others, you may not care, but I want people to wear what they love and what resonates with them and expresses their creativity.
This is The Metro. I'm Tia Graham. My guest is Rachel Lutz, owner of the Peacock Room, one of the New York Times 25 favorite clothing stores in the country. When we return, we'll learn what Rachel has learned about Detroit retail since opening shop in 2011 and the new venture bringing her closer to Charles Lang Freer's vision of collecting art. You all stay right there. This is The Metro. This is The Metro. I'm Tia Graham. We're speaking with Rachel Lutz, owner of the Peacock Room, located in the Park Shelton and Fisher buildings in Detroit. The New York Times just named the Peacock Room one of its 25 favorite clothing stores in the entire country. And this fall, the Peacock Room Antiques Studio opens in the Park Shelton, which will be an event-driven destination for collecting, education, and community. Now, Rachel, have you visited the Peacock Room?
I have. I grew up seeing pictures of it. It's just not the same. You really have to go see the actual Peacock Room in the Smithsonian in DC.
What did you bring back with you when you visited?
I mean, tears, like memories. I didn't bring back anything other than just the memory of being immersed in that room. And it is just so spectacular. I mean, it's truly one of the most beautiful spaces I've ever physically been in. And the photos do not do it justice.
I mean, I can only imagine just being in that time and space in the late 1800s when he's building this and curating this from his mind. And the original owner hated it.
Hated it. In fact, you asked what I brought back. I did steal the andirons from the fireplace that look like sunflowers. Don't tell the Smithsonian that. I stuck them in my purse.
Dr. Robinson, we're sorry.
Yeah. So like the real, like look it up. Look up the real story of the Peacock Room. Whistler and his patron, they like butted heads, and there was high drama. Some filmmaker needs to do a story on the creation of the Peacock Room. And what I heard was the only reason it actually survived is because there was a carpenter, I think his name was Hyde, and he was working on, it was either Jekyll or Hyde. Was it Jekyll?
You're right. I believe it was Jekyll.
Okay. So there was a carpenter that worked on the room, and they built it on these kind of floating panels. Had they not done that, had they painted directly onto plaster or what have you, they wouldn't have been able to dismantle the room and ship it across the ocean. So it was all just very serendipitous. I mean, it was like the perfect alignment of circumstances. But yeah, the room, it kind of remained unfinished, and, there was fighting over money. And I heard that, there are so many stories and so much lore around the Peacock Room, but it was fascinating. So there's not that much drama in my store. It's not like Say Yes to the Dress, where there's like a committee of mother-in-laws and neighbors who are like, you look terrible in that. But there's some positive high drama moments in the Peacock Room in Detroit, where it kind of reminds me of like, we're kind of fulfilling the vision of the actual Peacock Room.
I know. Once again, like you said, that needs to be a movie. It does need to be a movie, because just even having his patron away and he's hosting folks in the
throwing parties
in the Peacock Room,
ordering champagne on his tab. Just deliver it to the house.
It was amazing. So I would love to see that in film. But once again, you've been in business since 2011, and over the last decade or so, what have you noticed about Detroit's retail landscape? How has it evolved?
Oh man, we've lost some amazing shops over the years. When I was first starting, we had like Tulani Rose, which was right around the corner. Source Booksellers was, in a different location. They are still around. I still buy books there. But there's so many great shops that aren't there anymore. Often River, who was in the space that I was in the Park Shelton before me, she moved up the street, and yeah. So there were so many great shops that really were so Detroit. There was this shop called Little Things, even when I was like a teenager in Greektown. You hear about these stores, and they really kind of they were like the zeitgeist of the time. And so, not to start on like a negative note, but yeah, we've lost some really great shops, and we say buy local or buy local. So the Amazonification of shopping has really caused some casualties, not just in terms of places to shop, but like cultural sources, cultural institutions in the city and in neighborhoods all across this country. So yeah, back in the day in 2011, I was told, like, why would you open a store in Detroit? Is there a market?
Yeah.
There's an underserved market in Detroit. Even at the time in 2010, I think the DEGC, the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, did a study on retail bleed outside of Detroit. So the money that Detroiters spend outside the city, and I think at that time it was like $100 million on groceries, $310 million on clothing. Detroit. So to say that Detroiters don't have spending power or there's no market here, well, that's cool. Leave the business to the rest of us, because Detroiters have money and they're spending it, but they're spending it outside the city, in the burbs or online. I'm sure I'd be curious to see a new study done. That was, like I said, 2010. But that really encouraged me to, serve the market. And I've lived in the city since the 90s, and I felt like we had some great clothing boutiques, but we didn't have enough of them. And we didn't have a lot of places that serve sizes 0 to 22 like we do. Didn't have a lot of places with a wide range of prices that were accessible to everybody. So yeah, that's what and retail in general, to answer your question, it's changed so much in the last 15 years.
Proximity of shops close, connected to one another. Do you see the distance in between the shops and spaces? Like, if there's not a business district or a shopping district per se in the city of Detroit, we can talk about the Avenue of Fashion and we could talk about other spaces. But other than that, there aren't many spaces where you can just walk around and shop in the city of Detroit. Do you see that as a hindrance for the retail space?
Yes, that is a very astute observation of Detroit's retail, because we are scattered, a lot of us. You go to some areas, like Saugatuck or the Miracle Mile on Chicago, like there's a clustering. Exactly. And because of how we have laid out the topography of our city, especially downtown with all those parking lots, you park and you have to walk like 8 blocks to go to maybe a couple stores. So one thing that drew me to the Park Shelton and the Fisher Building was they were little ecosystems of, okay, there's residents, there's shops, there's restaurants. Now, even in the Park Shelton, there are no other retail stores. There used to be a t-shirt shop and a coffee shop that sold jewelry and a bra shop and us. And now we're like the last retail standing in the Park Shelton. I want new neighbors. One thing that drew me to the Fisher Building, we have some great retail neighbors in the Fisher Building. So we have like a hair salon, MG Studio across the street. Or across the hallway. We have Pure Detroit. We have, Mature for men. But back in the day, it wasn't just the ground floor of the Fisher Building. It was the 2 mezzanine levels that also had boutiques. So that density, we need these districts like the Avenue of Fashion. It's really hard to convince people to come down for like a shop or two and get back in their car, park 4 times, go to 4 different neighborhoods for what they're looking for. So I hope as retail fills in, I hope that we fill in clusters.
That's what people want. See. Yes. Yeah, I mean, as a shopper, once again, I would love to see that, just a space where I can park and go to just multiple shops in one stop. It would just make everything a lot easier. So what do you want to see come within Detroit's retail space that's still missing?
Oh, everything. So much. I mean, my gosh, if there was a shoe store in our building, if there was a tailor shop in our building, Yeah, I see the pain in your eyes,
Yes,
Tia.
I really I'm
Yeah,
missing shoe stores. I'm
and
missing shoe
and
stores.
those are industries that have been really challenged. Like Zappos put out a lot of shoe boutiques. Tailor shops. It's a very skilled profession,
Hmm.
so there are not as many tailor shops in the area. It really. I mean, even Detroit Store Fixture, that's 140-plus-year-old business. I think what's keeping them alive right now is cannabis shops.
Wow.
So really, like, the whole landscape has changed, and I think almost everything. If there's a passionate store owner out there who can, curate a great collection, I definitely want them to consider opening up shop in Detroit. And we kind of need everything. I mean, what is your answer to that? I'm going to ask you.
Me, like, what shops do I think we're missing, or what spaces do I think, like you said, a shoe store, desperately would love a shoe store. Haven't found one of those in a long time. And then as well, I think we are just, for me, it's just that business square. That's just the biggest thing that's missing for me. It's
The
just
clustering.
having the clustering of shops in one space, in one area that's walkable, that we can actually all sit down and enjoy.
So, like Eastern Market. Eastern Market has a nice little density of shops. You have Savvy Chic, you have
Exactly.
DeVries, you have, some great little boutiques. But yeah, more of that, please. More clustering and non-traditional retail. So, retail is really evolving, and it's not just, like I said in the beginning, stuff on a shelf anymore. Retail experiences can be found in different types of businesses, like maybe not even a store itself, but maybe in a hotel boutique, or there's some really creative things going on, like galleries experimenting with different models. That's what we're going to try to do with our antique studio. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit, but that was one of those ideas of, like, we need to think beyond the traditional brick and mortar.
Now, we are watching retail stores, line Woodward in full force. We're seeing H&M, we're seeing the Apple Store, we're seeing the return of Hudson's and Aldo and so many other spaces right now. In your opinion, is this a good sign that retail is slowly returning to Detroit?
My question is always, how long are they going to stick around? I hate to, be pessimistic, but I've seen a lot of things open over the years, and I've seen a lot of things close. So are we attracting businesses that have a market here, a sustainable market? I gotta say, I'm glad that the city of Detroit now has, like, a retail guru. And I heard that he is responsible for bringing stores like Fenty to the city. I'm thinking, like, that to me, like, that's a great, we have a great, bra boutique like Busted. But, in terms of major retailers, that store serves a variety of sizes. It serves, it's not like just basics, it's interesting things. So we need those stores that, like, Detroiters need to see. There are these big box retail. Great. It's like every other city. I really want to see unique things open. Maybe they are a canary in the coal mine. But I mean, we've already had John Varvatos come and go. We've had Aloe come and go. So I'd say that we want to attract things that are going to stay as long as they can. And if they're staying, that means that they're serving the community, a community need. So there's some cool stuff that opened up, and, it's like a nice little fanfare, but are those places that Detroit really needs, and are they serving a true market? And not just downtown, are they in the neighborhoods? Are they serving the neighborhoods?
That's one of my, questions to a lot of small business owners in general, or just business owners, when we talk about the landscape of Detroit retail. Detroit has always, I'm not going to say always, but in recent years, in the past decade or so, a lot of the big box stores have avoided the city of Detroit in pretty full force. The largest one is the grocery chain Whole Foods, which is in Midtown.
I remember before Whole Foods opened, and everyone's like, no one's going to shop there.
Yes, I remember
it's
that
only
too.
for, like, the bougiest of people. And, like, you go in Whole Foods and everybody shops there. I personally don't, because it's now owned by Amazon.
Yeah.
But I do think that it is a sign of health, of retail health. And yeah, they've stuck it out. I mean, Whole Foods is definitely serving their market in the city. So I do think that some of these big retailers, it's kind of like what you said about the New York Times. It's kind of validation in a way, that there is a desire to come into this market.
And we've established that you've been open since 2011. Like many shops on Woodward, you endured the construction of the queue line.
I did. I was told it'll directly impact you for 6 months, and it was about 3 years of direct impact. So, yeah, if you ever know of a district that's going through construction, I want everyone listening to make an intentional effort to go and support those restaurants, those shops. We're about to do some videos to promote Greektown. My goodness, those merchants have had a real tough time. And the feedback they always get is, well, once it's done, it's going to be great for you. And yet that's if you make it that long. Exactly. I mean, we really had it tough. So if you see orange barrels anywhere, I want you to stop thinking about, oh, it's going to be really annoying to get to that door, and make an intentional effort to get to that door, because you want those businesses in that district there after the construction project is done.
This is the Metro. I'm Tia Graham. We're talking about the Peacock Room making the New York Times 25 favorite clothing stores list in the country. Our guest is the founder and owner of the Peacock Room in Detroit, Rachel Lutz. When we return, we'll continue our conversation with Miss Rachel Lutz, and we'll learn about what's next for the Peacock Room and a new venture she's opening up this fall. You all stay right there. We'll be right back. This is the Metro. This is the Metro. I'm Tia Graham. We're speaking with Rachel Lutz, owner of the Peacock Room, located in the Park Shelton and Fisher buildings in Detroit. The New York Times recently named the Peacock Room one of its 25 favorite clothing stores in the entire country. And this fall, the Peacock Room Antique Studio opens in the Park Shelton, which will be an event-driven destination for collecting, education, and community. Now, Rachel, when we left off, we were talking a little bit about the evolution of the retail space here in the city of Detroit, some of the things that we have lost and some of the things that we would like to see. Having grown up in and around the city of Detroit as a fourth-generation business owner, following in your parents' footsteps, operating a space in the Fisher building, you've understood what the ebbs and flows of this retail space have been. What do you tell someone opening their first storefront in the city of Detroit in 2026?
Start small. I mean, I started small. I think sometimes, we get razzle-dazzled by a lot of these business contests of you could win, tens of thousands of dollars to open. I started by maxing out a $1,500 credit card. And and again, not knowing anything about having a store. I did work for a small boutique, like a family-owned boutique, not my family, but I did get a front row seat to watching someone run a store. But when I had my idea, I wanted a store in the neighborhood. I didn't know what it would sell, and that's usually a big part of a business plan. So I started actually just thrifting. I went to estate sales. I went to thrift stores. Working at Nordstrom, I kind of knew how to identify higher end fabrics, so I could go down a rack and pull something oh, this looks good. And I started out without a storefront. I started with just a series of pop-ups. And a pop-up was hey, Thursday after work from 5 to 8 o'clock, I'm going to be set up with a couple racks at Savvy Chic in Eastern Market, or in the Carriage House at the Inn on Ferry Street. And I did 5 of those. And every show I did, I gained, new people who were oh, I'm excited when you actually open a real store, and keep us posted. And I started building up my social media, my Facebook page at the time. I wasn't even on Instagram. And I just remember, every time I'd have an event, I would pay down the credit card a little bit, get some new things, buy another box of 100 matching hangers. That was a big deal. It was resale. I started as resale, but I presented it like a boutique. I have a friend, Jadana at Margot and Max. She's same thing. She's a resale shop, but you go in and it really looks like a boutique, and she has to convince people no, this is resale. And I loved the sustainability of it. I loved taking things that still had a life in them and still had usefulness and passing them on. So I started small, and I hope that anyone out there listening who wants to do something like this, like you don't need to win a business contest. You don't need a trust fund. Sometimes you just need some prayers and a credit card. And before I opened my brick and mortar, I had a dear family friend who gave me a small interest-free loan so that I didn't open as a resale shop. I opened as a boutique that had both new things and we've got some consignment in the corner. And we eventually just phased that out because we grew so fast and there was such a demand for new clothing. We still carry some of the vintage and antique, but for the most part, it's vintage inspired because there are some timeless styles. And people sometimes are like, is this all vintage? And I'm like, no, that's why we have 12 of the same piece in different sizes. But I've always, gotten inspiration from those classic ones. So for someone who wants to open their own store, if they are passionate about it and they are able to just kind of scrap it together, there's, that saying, you got to make a way from no way. You can do that with a store. A store, we were talking about non-traditional retail, you can exist just as a pop-up. You don't need a physical storefront anymore. One thing that I will say, though, is try to not do this whole we're online only. By the time you pay to promote your presence online, you're in a sea of competitors. And you're probably going to pay monthly what you'd pay for a retail storefront in a neighborhood. So you may as well just be in the neighborhood.
Good advice. Great advice for those who are listening. Pass that message on. Pass it on. So, Rachel, the Peacock Room Antiques Studio, opening up this fall. You have announced the opening of this new venture, and in your words, this room will allow people to gather, learn, share stories, share their collections, and discover pieces that will be treasured for years to come. What are you imagining for the space, and where do you see yourself fitting in Detroit's arts community?
Oh, wow. In the arts community, I'm humble enough to know that I'm not an art dealer, but I've been a, quote, passionate amateur of collecting things that are older, things that are newer but interesting. I've always loved the arts and culture scene. I grew up in a home with beautiful, thoughtful things that my parents collected over the years. And it was one of those things where I looked around that professional landscape and I'm like, I could do this. If they're able to do, I can do this. So I think that I envision this as a space where we can all gather and learn together. When I mentioned, touring the docents from the Freer Gallery around Detroit. So I helped, with this pilgrimage that these Freer docents made to Detroit to walk in Freer's footsteps. And we arranged a dinner at Cuisine Restaurant on Lothrop, right across from the Fisher Building. And I asked Chef Paul, can I decorate the table? Sure. Because, I get up there and there's just this long white tablecloth because, he's focusing on this delectable food. But I knew that, these are arts docents. They'll want some visual stimulation. So I went through my own pottery collection because Freer collected a lot of pottery. He collected a lot of Pewabic. He was one of the early patrons of Mary Chase Stratton. And, being on the board of Pewabic and volunteering there for many years, I have an addiction. I mean, collection. I have a collection. And it's not hoarding if your stuff is cool, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. But I had tiles. I had some antique Turkish pottery and antique Japanese pottery. So I took from my own collection, packed it up in boxes, got to the restaurant ahead of time, and just laid out this tablescape of this pottery. And the Freer docents started picking up the pieces from the table, and they're like, what's the story behind this? Wow. Oh, is this Armenian? They started picking up individual pieces. Is this Pewabic? Okay, how many Pewabic do you have on the table? And the organizer was like, do you want to docent your collection to us? And I died. I'm like, I'm docenting to actual docents. And this is what I meant when I said a little earlier, we are all collectors. Wow. I don't have any formal background in this. I just know what I like and what resonates with me, what I'm drawn to. And that kind of was part of the inspiration, especially after that lecture at the Freer House that you had promoted, hearing more about Freer's collection and being in the beautiful garden, the newly restored garden at the Freer House. Just all of a sudden I woke up the day after that lecture and my brain was just on fire. And I thought, you know what? There needs to be a space where we can all learn together. We can show off our collections. So I really wanted this as almost like a salon, like a French salon concept, where you learn from experts, you trade ideas. Do you want me to get into some of the people that I'm excited to present in that space?
Which I'm excited to learn from the people that you plan to present. I see in the press release you signaled to Henry the Hatter, the Dabble's African Bead Museum, and Hagopian rugs you have on one of Dabble's creations now.
Yeah.
Those are like legacy institutions, the people, the businesses they've created within the city of Detroit and Metro Detroit. Why are these stories so important to capture and hold?
My goodness, especially again in this like budding age of AI, you just don't know who to trust anymore. You don't know who to listen to anymore. And I like to go back to the humans with expertise, generations sometimes of expertise. I got this necklace from Dabble's at the African Bead Museum maybe like 10 years ago. And it's just a bunch of, timeless, but it's carnelian. But like you can buy carnelian made anywhere now. But like he educated me when I came in on this necklace. It's from the late 1800s. It's from this town in Germany. And they were known for such and such. And like I was just entranced listening to Dabble's expertise talking about the Hagopian family, brother and son. They know rugs. I mean, she can look at a room. She's like a decorating savant. Like you need this type of colors. You need this much scale, this measurement. And Ed, he can look at something and be like, this Tunisia, and it was made approximately this, like Google Lens.
No.
You just don't. And if you did, you wouldn't know to believe it or not. So I want the Peacock Room Antique Studio to be a space where you can come and listen to people present their expertise that they've learned, and I want to learn from them too. So there is humble students, and it'll be a place to shop, yes, but it's not just going to be, as I said earlier, stuff on a shelf.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People want their things to have a story and to matter.
Tell their story.
Exactly, and to pass it. Continue to tell the stories and share with generations.
You mean that chipped pie plate from Home Goods isn't going to make it a generation? You sure? Wah, wah.
I know. I'm sorry. My gifts from Hobby Lobby will not.
They're not going to make it.
Out of here. Excuse me. The Park Shelton is located in a neighborhood called the Art District for a reason. We all know why it's called that. The Detroit Institute of Arts opened in 1885. The Scarab Club began in 1907. The College for Creative Study traces 1885. When you think about the art history that neighborhood holds, how do you see this space continuing in those early footsteps?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think of the expertise and the just really, like you said, the life of that neighborhood. It's always been the cultural heart of Detroit. I'm really excited to draw together people who are, maybe they consider themselves collectors, maybe they don't know they're collectors yet, artists, just to be in that space. That was a reason why I wanted to be in the Park Shelton when I first opened, because you're in the arts and culture district of Detroit. So you have people that, maybe they have a formal education, maybe they haven't, maybe they just frequent galleries, maybe they just frequent the estate sales of people with like incredible collections that they've, gotten from all over the world. So I'm hoping that this is basically going to be a parlor where people can come, listen to some music, do some tastings, learn something, do some shopping. I really just see it as a natural extension of the history that's been built in that area already.
Rachel Lutz is the owner of the Peacock Room, located in the Park Shelton and Fisher buildings. The New York Times just named the Peacock Room one of its 25 favorite clothing stores in the entire country, and the Peacock Room Antiques Studio opens this fall in the Park Shelton, I believe by appointment and during events. We're
eventually going to have hours, but it's going to start with a lot of event-driven hours.
Yes. Rachel, thank you so much for joining me on the Metro, spending this hour with me and giving us a little bit of the spotlight you have from the New York Times.
Thank you so much.
Of course. This is the Metro, and for the space lovers out there, it may be a little cloudy at times today in Detroit, but Above the clouds, there will be a partial solar eclipse. Unlike 2024, when Detroit experienced near total coverage, this solar eclipse will only be 3% coverage. Still, if there is a break in the clouds, anyone with an extra pair of eclipse glasses laying around may be able to see the moon pass along the top left corner of the sun that's peaking at 1:46 p.m. The Metro is hosted by Robin Vincent and me, Tia Graham. It's produced by Sam Corey and Alex McLennan. Our engineer is Jose Yanis, and our senior producer is David Lyons. The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University, and this is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. You all have a great day.